Hello everyone, my name is TheMadScorpyon, and I wanted to pose a question that is generally a discussion. Now, this isn't me making any opinions, well, there might be opinions, but this is just a discussion I want to have with all of you, and this is honestly the question: do you think that of the weapons that returned with the Brave Arsenal, and I'm talking about like Edge Transit, Hammerhead, Blast Furnace, things that were sunsetted before that came back with the Brave Arsenal, do you think that they are better now than what could have been their successors, respectively? Now, of course, like I mentioned, I'm not going to be talking about Falling Guillotine, Hung Jury, actual Succession, ironically enough, or Forbearance, or any of the other ones, if I'm missing any, that still existed in the game, but because they were a fan favorite, they were, just redone because they based the Brave Arsenal off of popularity as well. So I'm going to be looking at a few other things once I transfer over to light.gg and basically compare it to a few other things that might be its, let's just say, successor or son, where it's a very equally placed weapon that was essentially the same gun, just not the same gun afterwards. Okay, so at the top of the list, going through the Brave Arsenal here, is, of course, the Mountaintop. Now, I'm not going to lie, I am just going to flat out say, I think it pretty much came back in such a big way that I do think it is not just better, it is just flat out a better version. It's almost literally just Mountaintop 2.0. If you don't know, it kept its micro missile frame. It is not its perk, it is its just natural frame, so it is already a straight shot. Not to mention, it also got more perks in addition to just Rangefinder and Rampage, which it does still have, so that's already a plus. Plus the removal of the essentially, not the removal, but the reduction of self-splash damage, making it so that you can rocket jump with Mountaintop. Not gonna lie, flat out, any other just general thumper grenade launcher or single shot tube grenade launcher, this is in its own class, so it's hard to say there was anything that beat its successor. Of course, obviously, Forbearance and what it came out to turned out to be a amazing just single shot tube fed grenade launcher, but at the same time, that is in a different category of its own. I am thinking of just straight up single shot thumps, to put it to a better word, which I think the closest that it can be compared to is Pardon Our Dust, just because I know a lot of people use that because it has some very good perks to combine with disorienting grenades, but just as a flat out damage option pure, I do think, again, Mountaintop is still on top of it. With a combination of things like autoloading in Vorpal, or autoloading in Frenzy, or even autoloading recombination just for a really good damage buff right off the bat, there is not much that it can do to compete. Not to mention things like Impulse Amplifier for already increased velocity and reload speed, or Ambitious Assassin to do something similar like Forbearance. Again, I think Mountaintop is just straight up in a class of its own, and it's hard to say that it is really compared to anything. It is just straight up on top Mountaintop 2.0. Now, another one that I would suggest is just straight up possibly better than before is Blast Furnace. In its original form, it did have lots of good just straight up pulse rifle perks. In addition to that, it was very solid and at the time did have scope options, which was a very underrated thing about the Black Armory. But then we do also have to compare it to a few other things, mainly talking about other ones like Disparity, to name one, which is from Season 19, or Sacred Providence and Insidious, two other ones from Raids, which, actually talking about it, this does have a few, or one or two of the roles that made Sacred Providence ideal, because I know for that one, a lot of people saw it Rapid Hit and Kill Clip, which comparatively, it does have a very similar setup with things like Perpetual Motion, or Keep Away and Kill Clip, not to mention the idea of things like Kinetic Tremors and Firefly together, which on the Hung Jury is an amazing combination, plus other things that are just pure PvP potential, with things like Rapid Hit and Perpetual Motion, Rapid Hit Headseeker, or Rapid Hit Zen Moment if you just want an utterly stable aggressive frame burst rifle. So comparatively to other things, like I said, Disparity, Sacred Providence, Insidious, or even Belisarius D, which is the latest updated comp pulse rifle, I might say, again, Blast Furnace is just kind of on top of everything else that it can be compared to. And of course, I am talking about 4-round burst pulse rifles, just to keep it in the family, because obviously that is what it's compared to. Like I said, when I mentioned successor, I meant other versions of the gun that came after it was lost to time. Keeping up with pulse rifles, then we also had Elsie's rifle, which, while not returning per se, this was the only gun that was brand new to the Brave Arsenal. It did return in a weird way from Destiny 1, so I did want to compare it to some of its competition. Of course, being a high impact frame, slower 3-burst, it is already in contention with things like the Messenger, which is really high bar to clear. Now, just looking at perks straight up, it does have a very similar feel to Messenger, at least the original Messenger, with obviously Desperado, Zen Moment, Feeding Frenzy on it, to name a few things. But at the same time, it is comparative, both PvE and PvP-wise. Access to both Repulsor Brace and Destabilizing Round keeps it more current with Void builds, not to mention Desperate Measures, of course, a new perk. But like I said, things like Keep Away or Frenzy combined, Keep Away Kill Clip, Zen Moment Desperado, Feeding Frenzy Desperado. I would say it is kind of on par, just as a base thing, but of course there's always the actual performance and stats that it has to be compared to. Same with New Purpose. The New Purpose being the Stasis Pulse Rifle from, Duality, if brain is remembering what it's called. That one was a very solid pulse rifle, but at the same time, it did have a weird set of roles. I know my PvE endgame role was essentially Perpetual Motion and Adaptive Munitions, but at the same time, this one, like I said, it is the only thing that's officially new. So in comparative to other high impact frame pulse rifles, I definitely think it has a leg to stand on. But, however, in terms of more specific things, it is just a basic pulse rifle. While, again, the Messenger is a Trials weapon. It has access to the Trials origin traits, and, of course, the Adept mods, if you can get an Adept version. So, not really got much going for it, officially, for Elsie's rifle. And the infamous Midnight Coup, a adaptive frame kinetic hand cannon. One of many and many other versions of this gun to contend with on whether or not it actually stands up on its feet. And already off the bat, it does have some excellent roles. Things like opening shot for the Crucible Folk, opening shot explosive payload, outlaw kinetic tremors, to name a few things. Firefly kinetic tremors, keeping aiming for the head. Explosive payload, one for all. There is many great perks that you can get for this. But just to name a few of the weapons to keep it compared to, Spare Rations and Austringer. Those are the two weapons that not only same slot, but same frame. Not the same hand cannon when compared to a little bit together. You gotta understand, both of these are very high, I would say, in the popularity for the Adept frames. Obviously, Spare Rations is an old favorite, has definitely Crucible setups as well. Not to mention Austringer, the crafted hand cannon that with things like enhanced Eye of the Storm and enhanced, I think it was Snapshot or one other Crucible-based perk, that was definitely a high standard to beat in terms of Crucible hand cannons. So I'll leave it up to you. Do you think that Midnight Coup is better than the rest? Because obviously it does have a refreshed version of perks and is unique in access to Desperate Measures. But again, I asked the question, do you think it actually compares to what succeeded afterwards? The Recluse is a harder one to compare just because obviously with Funnelweb existing, it was a one-to-one recreation of Recluse. The only difference really in between, considering some of the roles it has, aside from updated perks like Target Lock on it, it still does have Master of Arms, which is its essentially pinnacle trait, returning from its original version, which I don't think this is one of those pinnacle traits that will actually occur on other things like Killing Tally off of 21% Delirium, or Reservoir Burst off of Main Ingredient. No, not Main Ingredient. Why do I keep forgetting the name of this one? But you know what I mean. That fusion rifle. I keep forgetting its name. But I digress. The Recluse, it's hard to say whether or not it's competing. Because again, it has access to its unique perk. It was slightly nerfed when it came back. But it does have a variety of other perks. Like I said, again, 3.0 access more so with Repulsor Brace and Stabilizing Rounds, and since Funnelweb came with the introduction, I think it has Repulsor Brace, but it doesn't have Destabilizing Rounds in comparison. It's, like I said, it's hard to say whether or not this one exactly compares, just because the only real difference is access to its pinnacle trait and one or two other upgraded perks. that being said, of course, it is still, I think, one of the better performing SMGs in the game. I do remember lightweight SMGs I hated. I used Recluse for a while, and sure, it was spicier back then, but Recluse back then was the only SMG I really enjoyed. SMGs since then have been kind of hit or miss, mostly miss though. Now, the thing that I believe has the most competition from the original stuff that is still around is Hammerhead. Now, keep in mind, it is a void adaptive frame machine gun, which means it is just generally all-purpose, full auto, good rate of fire, good damage. It is the median for machine guns. But then, in comparison, once Hammerhead was sunset and initially everything else, there was two other ones that it actually can be straight up compared to, almost one-to-one, with very similar perks in its fields. There is corrective measure. Hang on, I need to do a search. Corrective measure from the Vault of Glass. It is not only one that is earned in a pretty solid to go through raid, it has access to also an adept version, which of course means adept mods, and multiple perks on it because it is from the Vault of Glass. That's how they work there. But its perks, some are frankly not that great, like Thresh and Tap the Trigger, only really good for the Crucible crowd. But then things like Subsistence and Firefly, Demolitionist Firefly, Feeding Frenzy Adrenaline Junkie, a Feeding Frenzy High Impact Reserves, One for All. There is some good perks on it that definitely make it work it. I know if I recall, the go-to for me is Demolitionist Firefly, or in another case, Sir, a Subsistence Firefly. Very good at spitting out lead all at once. And then there is one more that is its prime competition in terms of whether or not Hammerhead is really, really worth it. And that is the Commemoration, the raid heavy MG that is from the Deepstone Crypt. Again, void adaptive frame, practically copy paste in its weapon just general makeup, but oh so many perks in comparison. Just looking at the left frame, surplus, pretty good. Reconstruction, S tier, Feeding Frenzy, A tier, a 4th times the charm if you just want full bullet hose on a single target for Divinity. Great. And of course, Rapid Hit, Subsistence, Dragonfly. That is all just one column and many great perks. High Impact Reserves to name other things. Killing Tally, Firing Line, Focused Fury, just straight up Rampage, even Unrelenting if you're in the trenches and need some help. Not only that, but this is craftable. So if you do get the rolls and get the reds, you can get exactly what you want. There is no real hunting once you got that. And of course, the obviously double enhanced setup. So with that, do you think that Hammerhead really stands a chance just compared to some of these perks? Because I know the thing, or at least the curated one for Hammerhead is 4th times Killing Tally. But at the same time, it's not enhanced Killing Tally or enhanced 4th times, which I'm getting them mixed up, which Commemoration can actually get access to. So at the end of the video, again, I am not sharing any more opinions than my personal use. I'm not saying, holy crap, they're bad, or oh my god, their originals were so much better, or their successors are better. I'm just saying, there are some guns that came back with a Brave Arsenal that definitely have competition for their slot, especially, like I said, with Hammerhead. It's got 2 other A-tier machine guns that are the exact same damage type, exact same archetype. So, does it have a leg to stand on, or is it just another one? And with that, my name is TheMadScorpyon. I will see you in the next video.